they're saying F white people, F Trump. How can you say it's not a hate crime against a white person?
So first, I want to say this is absolutely sickening. It's it's unfathomable that so much hate and anger can fill up a person where they go out and they think that this is okay. And then it was stupid to do it on Facebook Live, but that's a whole other story. So this is absolutely sickening. But I'm going to say something that's probably not very popular. We cannot callously go about classifying things as a hate crime. Motive here matters. So was this for hate of Donald Trump, the president-elect, because of things that he has said, or was this for pure hate of white people? That matters, because if we start going around and anytime someone says something or does something really egregious, really bad, and sickening in this instance, in connection with the president-elect, or Donald Trump, or even President Obama for that matter, because of their political leanings, that is slippery territory. That is not a hate crime. Hate crimes are because of a person's racial ethnicity, their religion, their gender, a disability. It is your political leanings, because someone doesn't like your political leanings, maybe something bad to you. That is not a hate crime.
But Alice, even hate crimes, aren't all hate crimes motivated by stupidity?
They're motivated by a lot of things: stupidity, heartlessness, thoughtlessness, carelessness, so many things. But clearly, I agree with Simone. This is sickening to watch, sickening to think that some careless, thoughtless thugs would do something like this to someone who appears to be so innocent. But look, not to get too far ahead of the legal skis here, based on what we hear in the video, it does sound as though this was a hate crime. The language they use about referring to the poor victim as a white person, and the different language they use. And I hope it is classified as that, because therefore the penalty will be much greater, and they deserve the harshest penalty they can get. Unlike you, Don, I fear what my parents would do to me much more than what the law would do to me if I was caught doing something like this.
I just wonder,
I never would.
when you see these are 18-year-old kids, and you look at the video, you're like, what is going on? What on earth? Why would anybody ever think that it was okay to treat another person like that for any reason, regardless of it, if it's a disabled person, if it's a mentally and physically incapacitated person, if it's a white person or black person, whatever. Why on earth, Matt? I just don't understand it.
I mean, it's man's inhumanity to man. It's brutality is what it is. And I think the fact that this is a vulnerable person who was probably duped into sort of going along with them, it appears, somebody who is mentally disabled, I think makes it even more sickening. But, Don, I mean, at the end of the day, you just try to wrap your head around evil. That's what this is. It's evil. It's brutality. It's man's inhumanity to man. And
I don't think it's evil. I don't think it's evil. I think these are young people, and I think they have bad home training. I think that when I say who is raising these young people, I have no idea who's raising these young people, because no one I know on earth who is 17 years old or 70 years old would ever think of treating another person like that. It is inhumane, and you wonder at 18 years old, where's your parent? Where's your parent? Where's your guardian?
Did y'all forget? Wait, did
Hold on, let Peter answer, Simone, and then I'll bring you in. Go ahead, Peter.
I don't know. I mean, look, this isn't the epidemic of violence in American society. Robert Kennedy spoke about it very eloquently decades and decades ago. This is a horrific example, sickening, it's pathetic, sickening, disgusting example of a kind of senseless violence that exists throughout American society. I mean, look at the number of people who are murdered every year in the United States compared to other societies around the world. I mean, this is one particularly grotesque example of a kind of casual violence, that we just take for granted in the United States.
Yeah, Simone, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
I just want to remind folks that we cannot sit here and ignore that for at least for the last year, on very public display, the worst parts of America have been brought from the fringe into the mainstream. So that affects people on both sides. We've talked about white nationalists and white supremacists and the KKK, but there are also, when this inflammatory rhetoric is out there, when someone is repeatedly telling you that your community is the worst of the worst, it brings out the worst of the worst in people. And so I'm not defending what they did. What these young people did was sickening. I would argue that they also need some help in addition to some consequences. But this just didn't come out of thin air. Some of the nastiest and worst things have been drawn out.
Let me just say this. These young people probably never watched the movie.
the country is the breakdown of the American family, which is unfortunate, heartbreaking, and tragic. And we will find out the motives as this continues to unwind, and we find out more of it. The disgusting language they use, and the girl in the video is laughing about it and egging her friends on. And for them not to have the moral fortitude to realize this is absolutely wrong, something's going wrong, it appears, with at home and what they're being taught, and for them to think this is okay, we've got some a lot of teaching to do with our children, and I think as I said, it stems from the breakdown of the American family.
Simone, you think I'm being too hard on her?
I am very hesitant to cast these young people as folks who come from broken homes. For all we know, they have a mother and a father who work very good, hardworking jobs, who have instilled or tried to instill good moral values in them, and the young people just aren't listening. So I think, one, we need more facts, and I think, two, we have to be careful to cast our young people, particularly our young people of color, to the side. Look, this was wrong, it was sickening, it was grotesque, they need help, they need to be punished, but we also have to have an elevated conversation about the surroundings and the things that our young people are dealing with every day, the images that they're seeing. They might not watch the news, but they're on Twitter where the president-elect is. They're on Facebook. They're listening to the Breakfast Club. They're listening to the radio. And all of these nasty, nasty things that we talked about, that we've witnessed over the last year, they have seeped into our children. They're in our schools. And it is coming to bear its ugly head in very, very egregious ways.
She's saying, and Peter's saying that this is they're not making excuses for these kids. This did not just happen in a vacuum.
Well, look, I think it's fair to have a conversation about our culture. I think that whether it's video games or violent movies, that those things, music, whatever, I'm not a prude, but those things all have an impact. I'm a little bit concerned, though, about the way that this conversation is going right now. I think that if this was a different situation, if you had white teens who had tortured and brutalized an African-American young man, and those white teens had talked about Obama and had been laughing, I don't think we would be having a conversation about how, our political discourse is so toxic, and, maybe these kids saw things on Twitter about Obama. And so,
Simone, talking to you.
when I watch that video,
I would say that's true, because you know what? The relationship of black people to America is very different than the relationship of white people to America. We're talking about, years, 200 plus years of slavery, 87 plus years of Jim Crow. And I'm not making excuses for these things, but it is not the exact same thing. We have to talk about these at elevated levels. We can't boil it down to, someone saying something disparaging about the first black president of the United States of America when the current president-elect questioned his authenticity as an American. That has some layers to it.
I just think that in context here, having watched that video, and the second thing maybe that you bring up is to inject maybe these. The impression I'm getting, at least from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that maybe they were asking for this. Maybe Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
I'm sorry. Let me clear this real up. I've never said no one was asking for it. The first thing that I said was sickening, this is disgusting, and it was wrong. But what I did say was, we don't know what they say hate crime.
Okay.
That is very
Peter, you're not using this guy. And Peter's
I-
been sitting here absorbing
it's so disturbing that honestly I have difficulty just kind of having a conversation about it. I think that they're two completely different conversations. There's a conversation about the horror of what these kids did, which is a horror, period, end of conversation. There's a totally different conversation about where we're heading as a society, where we are becoming more racially divided than we were even a few years ago, which I think is tragic. And I think, yes, Donald Trump bears some of the blame for that in a way that another Republican candidate, another Republican president wouldn't have, because of some of the frankly racist things that he's done. That has nothing to do, however, with in any way mitigating the horror of what this event was.
All right, thank you. That's going to have to be the last word. I'm out of time. Thank you very much. We'll come right back with Dramatic